I was painting his kitchen wall. We ran out of paint, so we went to the paint store in town, and then we came back. We had lunch. We were having lunch. I was eating an egg, I think. And all of a sudden, I felt really dizzy. And it was so bad, I couldn't sit up anymore. So I ran over to the couch. I lay down on the couch and I said, Ellen, I'm not feeling well. I'm really, really dizzy. I felt like I was dying. It was so strange. He said to me, shall I take you to the hospital? I said, I can't walk. I can't do anything anymore. And it felt like the world was disappearing. And I was still able to talk to him. I said to him that I loved him. And I said, will you please tell my children that I love them? Then I remember the ambulance coming, and they were trying to, moving me around. And then I was in an ambulance, and I only have a few memories of that. I was in and out of consciousness all the time. So this is what happened in my conscious mind. But there was something else happening at the same time that I only realized, obviously, when I finally came to, because I did. All of a sudden, I heard myself screaming and screaming and screaming. And it was very, very loud, and the intervals in between the screams were pretty short. But after a while, the intervals between the screams became longer, and the screams were not as loud anymore, until finally the screaming was really quiet, and then it subsided. And then I was floating in something, and I didn't have a body. It was only my mind, or whatever you call it. I didn't know where I was. I didn't know what was happening. I had no idea. All of a sudden, I became aware of something white over there on the right-hand side, on the top of my vision. I did have vision, obviously. And what that was my former life. That was my life on this earth, life as I have always known it. And it was over there, and I knew that I could not reach that. I knew that I couldn't go back there. I desperately wanted to go back to my life, but I couldn't go back. I was stuck in this, whatever it was, where I was. And I remember thinking, realizing that I was dying. And I remember being kind of pissed off, because my boyfriend, who was 11 years older than me, I thought, it's not fair. I'm dying, and he's much older than I am, and this shouldn't be happening. And then I also worried about the fact that who was going to paint the kitchen wall now, because I was about to paint the kitchen wall. It's kind of funny. And of course I was thinking about my children and all my friends, and that I had to say goodbye, or I couldn't say goodbye, but I would never see them again, because I was in the next room, so to speak. So I realized that I had to get used to that idea, that I was never going to go back, and that I was in this new world, which I didn't like very much, but I had no choice, so I better accept it. So I accepted it. And so I kept floating around in that, and kind of looking around. And I remember at one point there was a red spot, and it was pulsing, almost like an artery or something, or a heart, and it was pulsing. Now what that was about, I have no idea. But then after a while, I felt that I was in the lower left-hand corner of my vision, and all of a sudden I had a body again, but it was only half a body, and I was in some kind of straitjacket, and I could not move. I was in this straitjacket, and that was it. And I knew I had to get out of the straitjacket. I desperately had to get out of that. So I tried and I tried and I tried, and it was all I could do to try and move myself out of the straitjacket. But you know what a straitjacket is like, it won't let you go. So I was absolutely desperate. I knew I had to get out of that. And I had no energy left. I was completely almost without energy. And then all of a sudden I remembered that I had done this before. I had done this once before. And that gave me the impetus, the energy to try it one more time. And so I tried and tried and tried, and eventually I know I managed to get out. Now, there was also another thing that I was aware of. I don't remember seeing anything, but I was aware of there being a veil across, over there somewhere. And also that there was a very vast space on the other side of that veil. But I was still on this side of the veil. And the next thing that I remember is I heard somebody say, Esther, Esther, can you squeeze my hand? Esther, Esther, squeeze my hand. And I squeezed this, that was a man, I squeezed this man's hand. And then it felt like I was floating from, let's say, below the ocean or something, or wherever I was floating up, and I was looking up, and I saw a face, and it was a man's face. It was the doctor, it was a doctor. And he was saying, Esther, Esther, Esther. And I saw this man, and I all of a sudden realized that I was back here. I was back in this world. And it was the most amazing moment of my life. I just couldn't believe that I was back, because I was convinced that I was never going to come back. So and I knew for sure that I was back, and that I wasn't going to go back to where I came from. I was back to stay. And then they couldn't find anything wrong with me. So nobody knows what happened to me, why this happened to me. I have no idea. I am perfectly healthy. Here I am 2 years later. Nothing wrong with me. And it also helped me because 10 months later, I wish it was 10 years. 10 months later, my boyfriend did pass away himself. And it helped me to come to terms with that, because I knew that he was in a good place, and I guess it was his time to go, and it wasn't my time to go. So anyway, I'm here to tell the story, and I know he's listening. He's with me all the time. Yes, so, there's another thing. About a few weeks after I came out of the hospital, which I only stayed there for a few days, I went to see an energy healer, and I had seen this man lots of times, so I knew him quite well. And he said, Esther, what happened to you? So I told him, and he says, can I feel your energy? So he felt my energy, and he said, he became really emotional, and I thought, what's going on? And he said, Esther, can I give you a hug? I said, yeah, sure, of course. So he gave me a hug, and eventually, let go. And I saw that he was almost crying, and he was very emotional, and said, Esther, you did die. I can feel it. But you decided that you wanted to come back. So that was a pretty emotional situation. The whole thing was very emotional. And I hope it will never happen to me again. But I, of course it will happen to me again. But anyway, I don't know what I'm saying now. So, well, this is the story I had to tell you. And not many people know of this story, but I thought, oh, well, it's probably time to get it out there in the universe. Thank you.